Hi, I'm Dr. Roxanne Senior and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I will be delivering content related to lifestyle, a little home, a little work, a little travel. Whatever season I'm currently experiencing, that's what I will be sharing. If this is something that you think you would be interested in, please hit the subscribe button. Come on, it's a great day for a new start. Today I will be discussing boundaries, and this is something that especially in recent times have become very important to me. I have been practicing. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert just yet, but I have been practicing enforcing these boundaries. And this came up after I went through a very tumultuous and painful time. I was experiencing some transitions and I was very excited about the transition. But what I did not factor was that other people that I intended to lean heavily on would have to cooperate to make that plan a success. And I did not consult them. I just assumed that given our past and what we went through before now, and it was kind of a reciprocity. But I have come to realize that for everyone, there are seasons. And this person that I was banking on was going through a season that they were not able to respond to my request favorably. So they were not able to help me any at all. So that left me high and dry. And this was very painful for me because I would say that I was being so entitled. I think so. I would say that I was being entitled. And because I had invested so much in this relationship, this should have been a no-brainer. And they should have been able to respond in kind, because I had given so much. I was intending to withdraw, and I didn't say it was a huge amount that I wanted to withdraw, but it was a withdrawal, and they were not able to do that, and that left me feeling very hurt and resentful. And because of everything that I was experiencing at the time, without even any thoughts of boundaries or what should have happened, what could have happened. Yes, there were a lot of thoughts of what should have happened, but I did not think of what the other person would be going through. And I remember I have a very close friend. We've been friends since university. And I was expressing to her how I was feeling and how hurt I was. And she reminded me that this person had a life and they too probably were going through a lot of stuff that left them empty or low, and they were not able to provide for the withdrawal that I was expecting. So that sent me down a path of introspection. I started to try to figure out what part did I play in this product? What did I do? And in some regard, I was now holding myself accountable and trying to figure out what was I doing to allow this person to respond the way that they did. And I realized that I had not set any boundaries. I was free for all, there were no fences, and they could deposit as much as they wanted, and I would never, it wasn't transactional. I wasn't expecting to, but in truth and in fact, I was not expecting to withdraw anything, but it had just come upon a time when I needed something and they were not delivering. So I found out that I needed to set boundaries, and this was a very sticky situation But how would I establish these boundaries when I'm already in a relationship? I had to withdraw. I had to remove myself from the situation without any explanation, because it would not set me up for success. It was too fresh, it was too new. I didn't think that I would get anywhere dealing with that situation at that point. Plus, I needed to understand what was my part in the whole situation. So I withdrew. It wasn't a very long withdrawal, but I was not in, there wasn't frequent exchanges. And if I were to quote this very same friend who suggested that this person had a life and they had issues dealing with, she gave me the analogy of a clown juggling. Now, sometimes the balls can be very close when you're juggling and you're touching very frequently. But sometimes the higher the ball goes, the touches will not be as frequent. So I did not sever ties, but I ever so often checked in. There was point of contact until I found out exactly what my part was in the whole situation, and I was able to address it. Thankfully, there was an opportunity for me to do that. And I expressed to her how I was feeling, what I was expecting, and how I felt when my expectations weren't met. And she was very graceful. She understood exactly where I was coming from and why I would think all those thoughts. And she also pointed out to me what part I played in the whole situation, which was true, because while I was going through all of that, I did not express that any dissatisfaction. I was just, okay, all right, that's it. So after I found out what responsibility I had, this was the time after I resumed frequent contact. This was the time when I had to set limits, which is very important in boundaries. You have to set limits. You have to know what your values are, what your preferences are, what situations would make you uncomfortable, what situations will bring you joy. I do not believe that we should put ourselves in a position where our values are not acknowledged. I believe that creates for psychological turmoil, and no one that I know would like to subject themselves to turmoil. So realize, so there has to be introspection. You have to know who you are. What are your values? What are your morals? What are you not able to participate in, and stand firm with these limits? People who mean you well will understand where you're coming from and will have absolutely no problem with your boundaries. People who did not have any good intentions for you in the first place will probably push back and push back hard, but that's okay. You will never be everyone's cup of tea, and you will never find yourself in a situation where everyone will like you. And whenever you get to the point where you are accepting of this and you are okay with this, that will be a very great day for you. Another tip in enforcing boundaries is to communicate clearly. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't say something and then allow others to, don't be ambiguous. If I'm communicating with, and you know, my son Nathaniel, he taught me this a couple years ago. I had to be very clear when I'm communicating with him, because children at his age, they don't really have abstract thought. They're not able to understand things that are maybe ambiguous. So you have to be clear in communicating with him. And when I realized that this is how he has to understand, I went further and I brought it into my workplace. I brought it into my other relationships. I communicated exactly what I wanted. And if after saying something, to me, it sounded unclear, I took the opportunity to clarify what I was saying. Can you move the chair? Where do you, oh, can you please move the chair to the door? That is more clear than, can you move the chair? So my son was very instrumental in teaching me that, and that is also very effective when trying to establish boundaries. Be clear with what you're saying. Another tip that we should adhere to is be consistent. If it's no today, it should be no tomorrow, and it should be no next year. If these are your values, and if this is what you are trying to, if you're trying to establish these boundaries, you should be consistent with these values. Now, as humans, we're dynamic, and we're always growing, and we're always moving, because if there is any stagnation, that is death. So if we're alive, we're dynamic and we're changing. I had values 10 years ago that I no longer hold true. So a part of being consistent is to your values. It doesn't mean that just because last year you were saying hello, that means that today you have to say hello. You may not be a hi person, and that's okay. We're always changing, we're evolving, we're growing. But whatever your values are, be consistent with that. And feel free to communicate those values with people who are close to you, who you have to know have boundaries with. If you are on this journey and you want to establish boundaries, it is very important that you pay attention to self-care, because this can take an emotional toll. Because especially if you are trying to establish boundaries with people who are very close to you, you may have some pushback. And we all know that even in families, there are different personalities that we have to contend with. And if you are trying to establish those boundaries, it may be emotionally exhausting. So this now is where you should invest in self-care. And when I say invest, I don't necessarily attach a monetary value to this, but your time, invest your time in self-care. If you need to be recharged, I'm a spiritual person, and I'm also religious, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe in the Bible and all that it has to offer. And whatever I learn, I try to employ. Jesus was always communicating with people, but in the scripture we realize that he always took time out to replenish. He took time away. He was communicating with his Father. He was in nature, and Jesus is my eternal example. So it is very important that while we establish boundaries, we're also investing in self-care so that we don't run dry. With all this and with setting up boundaries, what we need to understand is that other people have boundaries too. So another tip is to respect the boundaries of others. And respecting other people's values doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with it, but you are respecting them because this is what they're asking of you. And in like manner, you would appreciate if people would respect your values and honor your boundaries. So it goes both ways. It's a reciprocity. If I am asking of others that they respect me, I should be very willing to respect others even as they enforce their boundaries. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful day, and remember, it's a great day for a new start.